Hello and welcome at the GCP-Mindset channel. Today we have a very interesting topic. It will be clinical research in Eastern Europe. And I have a very interesting guest with me. It's Dr. Andrei Stoicescu.
Hello, Andreas.
Thank you for being here. Andrei, thank you for being here. We know each other already for several years now. We conducted many studies in Eastern Europe, especially in Romania and Bulgaria together. You are coming from Romania. Can you tell me a little bit more about yourself?
First of all, thank you very much for inviting me here. So I'm a physician by formation. I have been working in the life science industry from the early years of my career in executive management positions. And I have reached over 20 years of experience in international business environment. So my company, Rotrial, was founded 13 years ago in Romania together with Dr. Greta, and which is my partner, and she's also a physician by formation and also with a business background. And we have worked in the clinical research area in Romania and Bulgaria ever since.
Great, Andrei. Thank you very much. Very impressive. Let's talk a little bit about the countries, so Romania and Bulgaria. Can you tell me something about the population there, the economic situation, the healthcare system maybe? I think most of our Western European people know it maybe from vacation, but not really from the conduct of clinical studies.
Sure, Andreas. Romania and Bulgaria have together 27.5 million inhabitants. Romania has the biggest share, about 20 million inhabitants, and the rest of 7.5 Bulgaria. So really the population is something big numbers. Both countries belong to the European Union and NATO. They have a stable economic situation and their economies are growing over the EU average. In fact, if we have a look on this chart, we can see that Romania has the second biggest growth within European countries in Q2 2018, and Bulgaria is not doing bad either. What's getting those countries very attractive for clinical research is the fact that the level of income in those countries is very low in comparison with Western standards. If we have a look on this chart, we can observe that the hourly cost in the countries, Romania and Bulgaria, is the lowest within the EU countries, is at the very end. So if we think about the salaries in the healthcare system, we can understand that the salary in Romania and Bulgaria is ridiculously low in comparison to Western standards. And actually the investigators' fees that they're getting is a significant motivation factor for them to work. Also, there are other costs like monitoring fees, which are perhaps 50-70% of the Western standard. And also, we have to think about indirect costs, such as accommodation and postage.
Okay, Andrei, that's a very good point. You said that the main motivational factor for the investigators is the money due to the low salary. I get very often the question from sponsors when I recommend, for example, let's go to Romania because I expect poor recruitment, that it's unethical to go to these countries, these economically poor countries. But actually, what's unethical to go to these countries and to provide a chance to be included in such an investigational study?
Well, first of all, I will say that it's not unethical. Everything goes through signing an informed consent first. And secondly, we are offering a chance through these clinical trials that these patients from Eastern Europe will get some medications or nothing. If we have a look on the healthcare expenditures per capita in Eastern Europe, we will understand why. Let's see what is happening in this chart. All the Western Europe countries, they have a lot of healthcare expenditure, but when you look to Romania and Bulgaria, they are obviously at the end of the line. This translates into the fact that sometimes the healthcare system is lacking or it's in a shortage of medication, and the patients, in order to get some treatment, they will take some clinical trials treatment, for instance. And this is very ethical things because we are helping these guys to get some treatment at all. Otherwise, they will not have so many chances. If we have a look on this other chart, which shows how much money the local patients from Romania and Bulgaria spent from their pocket on healthcare, you can see that Bulgaria is actually the champion with over 40% of the healthcare expenditures funded through their patient pockets. And this is also an answer of how ethical it is to invest in these countries. Another measure of the same issues is the universal healthcare coverage that countries in Western Europe and Eastern Europe can afford to. If you have a look, all the countries in Western Europe, almost they have a universal 100% coverage in their healthcare expenditures. But if you look again, who are at the end of the line in Europe is Romania and Bulgaria. What all these things tell us that is an impressive pool of patients in Romania and Bulgaria, 27.5 million inhabitants, which most of them they can be patients, and which cannot afford therapy because the system cannot provide them therapy. The system also cannot provide the proper amount of preventive medicine, and a lot of naive patients arise because they are not treated at all. We have also a heterogenic population in Romania because we have a lot of ethnic groups which are living. The same happens in Bulgaria as well. So there are a lot of opportunities in terms of population, naive patients, and affordability of therapy offered through these clinical trials. And actually the reaction of the population, of the patients, versus the clinical trials is a very positive one, which translates in very good recruitment rates because they know that this way they will get some medication, and a very good retention in the trials because they will continue to get the medication on a timely manner, and they will get cured eventually by the clinical trial medication itself.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That means actually that's even more ethical to go to these poor countries. But poor countries and a poor society always, of course, means that we have special indications in the society. That's what we have all over, also in Western Europe. When you look into poor societies, you have the typical diseases. Is it also the case in Eastern Europe?
We can analyze some social habits, and we can analyze afterwards the opportunities for clinical trials within Eastern European countries. I will start with smoking. If you can see from this chart, over 30% of the population for Bulgaria is an active smoker, which is way above the EU average, which translates in lots of opportunity in terms of therapeutic areas that we can focus on. So for instance, lung cancer, asthma, COPD. The incidence of this disease in Bulgaria is way higher than the ones which are met in Western Europe. Also, let's have a look on alcoholism. And this is a really strong matter because, as we can observe from this chart, alcoholism is a big problem even in young adults, as young as 15-year-olds. There are a lot of them, both in Romania and Bulgaria, reporting that they have been drunk at least twice in their life. So if we can go further on and analyze the really heavy drinkers and alcoholics on adult population, we will see that both Romania and Bulgaria, they have a big proportion of population heavily drinking, which translates in a lot of other opportunities for clinical trials in terms of cirrhosis, in terms of cardiovascular disease, neurological disease, which everything is associated with heavy drinking habits. Pancreatitis is another example. So all these diseases have an incidence, are more frequently met in our countries than in Western Europe. Further on, if we analyze this new chart regarding the obesity, we have a big problem in obesity with children, in both countries, Romania and Bulgaria. So it's clear that the alimentary habits have been changed dramatically in the last years because people change their diets, they're eating more fast food, more processed food, and they are not going to the raw food at all. More young people are getting obese, and this translates also in cardiovascular diseases. This translates also in metabolic diseases, diabetes, for instance, and any other diseases which are related to obesity. They have a higher incidence in both countries in Eastern Europe. Further on, there is another model which I will say they are not encouraging situation for the healthcare, but they are opportunities for the clinical research, is the use of antibiotics. Romania is obviously one of the countries within Europe which abuses with antibiotics. If we have a look on this chart, we will clearly understand why the Romanian healthcare system has a problem with antibiotics. Also, especially with second-line antibiotics, they are very strongly and misused. We will have problems and opportunities in the same time for the clinical research with the antibiotics resistance, with nosocomial infections, and also very importantly, and also related to use antibiotics, we have a very strong incidence in multiple drug resistance tuberculosis.
So, Andrei, you provided so many information. Let's summarize once again why the recruitment rate in Romania and Bulgaria is higher than in Western European countries.
So, we have a large heterogeneous population. We have a lot of naive patients that are becoming available because of lack of preventive medicine and the lack of therapy. Lack of therapy itself is a good opportunity of the trials because the patients, they will get some sort of medication. The sites will always be happy because they will receive an additional income in their pocket, and also participating in clinical trials which are financed by Western pharmaceutical and medical device sponsors is acknowledged by the PIs as a sign of academic merit and prestige.
Okay, Andrei, tell me a little bit more about your investigators. What kind of investigators do you involve in your clinical trials? More GPs, investigators at private clinics or university clinics? Tell me a little bit.
Well, when you think about which kind of investigator you're going to involve, you have to think about many factors. For instance, the type of the study. Is it a medical device study? Is it a phase 1 study? Is it a phase 3 study? Is it a medical IMP study? Whatever. Then you have to think about the study objectives. These are very important. It's the starting point of where you want to go. And then you have to think about what the sample size is, what the target population is. Having this in mind, you really then need to develop a strategy. We have a large number of sites in Romania, of good quality ones. We have a large number of teaching hospitals. We have a large number of medical schools. So there is plenty of room to choose from. Everything is yet based on our local knowledge. I will give you an answer to these questions from a practical point of view. For instance, if you have a medical device study, presumably it has a small patient populations, which means that you probably go in one of the capital cities, either Sofia or Bucharest, which have the right amount of patient population, and try to keep the study into big cities. If the patients are not fine only in the big cities, then we will move to the countryside. But for a large sample size study, besides recruiting in big hospitals and wards and private clinics, we will develop a patient referral program with GPs. And even more, another example, if a very specialized investigational tool or diagnosis tool is needed, like a cyber knife or a gamma knife is needed, then we will go to a private practice. Yet, in relation to choosing the investigators, everything stands behind our knowledge, our local knowledge, because we have a lot of experience in the field, we have a lot of experience with the local investigators. We are in the management crew, we are all doctors, medical doctors, and we can call them and we can ascertain their interest in participating, and then together with them, in a matter of hours, we will come back with an answer and the strategy of recruitment for the study.
Okay, that means relationship is very important in both countries. Okay, and you have all kind of investigators like we would have in Germany, for example. But what is in terms of experience and training? Do you have something like a legal requirement for GCP training in Romania or Bulgaria?
Sure. I mean, it's a legal demand even for the submission of the study that GCP should be proved, and every second year the investigators have to refresh their trainings. Actually, the quality of the clinical research in both countries is quite similar to the Western one.
Andrei, you told me already that also the typical Western European diseases like obesity, diabetes, type 2 arrived in your countries. But what kind of other studies do you conduct in your countries? Do you have certain indications where you can find easier patients? Let's be honest, a lot of CROs promising the sponsors a lot of patients, but most of the studies have delays, which is frustrating for both parties. How do you make sure that you don't have any recruitment problems?
Andreas, basically we have a lot of options. We have 27.5 million inhabitants in both countries. We have 550 hospitals in Romania and 320 hospitals in Bulgaria. We have 14 medical schools in Romania and 7 in Bulgaria. We have this huge medical institution in both countries which are recruiting patients from large geographic regions. So basically there is no medical indication at all that can be excluded from those two countries. We managed to recruit very well for really critical indication like naive patients with HIV or orphan drugs. So, but basically everything resides in the good relationship that we have with the sites themselves. We know the people, we have a personal relationship with them, and always keeping open the communication channel with the sponsor, understanding their recruitment burdens and finding a way to help them in order to achieve their targets.
I think you told me once that especially Romania is also a good place for HIV studies. Please, could you tell me once again why this is the reason?
Sure. At the end of the communist regime, a lot of children got infected because of blood transfusion with infected blood. And mainly they were infected through repeated use of the needles from one children to another. And now those children are growing up adults, and there are about 3,000 adults HIV positive under treatment and well recognized and well recorded along the country. Also we have mother-to-child transmission, which is significant in Romania, but most importantly we still get about, in the countrywide, about 60 new HIV naive untreated patients per month, which is a huge number.
Okay, that's of course a very sad history in terms of the HIV reason. But let's go to the regulatory part. And you mentioned already the ethics committee, which need to approve the study sites. What kind of ethics committees do you use? And what kind of competent authorities need to approve your studies?
Sure. As regards the ethics committees, the things were slightly different from Romania and Bulgaria. Let's start with Romania. So for products of medicinal origin, the ethics committees for multiple site study is a national ethics committee. It's a central one that needs to be applied. But for a product of medical origin, if we have a single site involved, only the local ethics committee approval is needed, which is much more formal. For medical device studies, the local legislation provides that we can use only the local ethics committees, and if the site doesn't have a local ethics committees well established within, then the central ethics committee could be used instead. But again, local ethics committees, they work quite smoothly and the approval are getting in a short period of time. And also the national ethics committee is very precise, and if there are no deficiencies, the ethics committee approval can be gotten within 60 days. For Bulgaria, regardless the fact that is a medical device study or products, investigational products of pharmaceutical origin, this submission should be done through the Central Ethics Committee. Actually, there will be a change of law with the beginning of 2019, while most of the local ethics committees which previously used to be involved will not be involved any longer. The competent authority in both countries are the national drug and medical device agencies.
Okay, you said already 60 days needed by the ethics committees. According to my experience, it's not really the ethics committee or the competent authority which makes a bottleneck of starting a study, but the contract negotiation lasts much longer, especially in Eastern European countries, according to my experience. Do you have any way or method to speed up the process to get a contract signed by both parties?
Sure, local knowledge makes a difference. For instance, things work differently in Romania and Bulgaria. We will start with Bulgaria. So the contracts are needed in Bulgaria for submission of both the Central Ethics Committee and to the competent authority. And they will need the contract drafts only. But in order to get the documentation for submission from the sites, some site manager always asks for the drafts or at least to start the negotiation for the contracts with the sites. So for Bulgaria particularly, it's good to have the contracts at least 45 days prior to the submission of the competent authority and the National Ethics Committee in order to get the necessary documents from the site management. For Romania, things are different. Only the National Ethics Committee, which is the central body, asks for the contracts, but at the beginning they will need a fully executed contract from one single site. And you have 45 days to submit the contract fully executed from the other sides, if this is a multiple site study, which means that you need less time prior for Romania to get the contracts fully executed, and it's always good to have them 30 days in advance prior to the ethics committee submission.
Okay, let's say the study started, everything is approved, the contract has been signed, and you run the study. And then you get an inspection. Do you have inspections in your countries? What kind of competent authority inspects your sites? What kind of inspections do you have? Also CRO inspections and site inspections. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure. Inspections are mostly triggered by safety reasons. Sites with a lot of recruitment having a lot of SAEs or adverse events. There are also planned inspections, but not so frequent because the competent authorities in both countries, they don't have such a big number of inspectors available. Usually the inspections goes at the site premises. A number of 2 or 4 inspectors are running the inspection. Sometimes the CRO gets inspected too.
Okay, very interesting. Let's change the topic slightly. You mentioned already medical device studies. And I think in all EU countries we have one hot topic in the medical device world. It's the MDR and the changes of the medical device regulations in terms of collecting clinical data. What will change in Romania and Bulgaria in terms of medical device regulation and especially in terms of running clinical studies to get clinical data?
So, medical device regulation is a very hard topic and hot one as well. I'm very sure that in the very near future we will get 10 times more medical device studies because of the new demands introduced by the medical device regulation. This means practically that the medical device companies should focus their clinical development in countries with cost-effective solution, otherwise their cost of development of the products will increase by a factor of 10 or even more.
Yes, I completely agree. We will have many more studies with medical devices, and I think the whole industry worries about additional costs for the development of medical devices. We have a huge harmonization process between clinical development of drugs and medical devices, and that is even a better reason to go into Eastern European countries to save money, or at least to reduce the development costs for medical devices. On the other side, we have also prolongation of the monitoring process of the whole life cycle. We will have more post-market studies with CE mark products. Do you think that it makes sense to conduct also the post-market studies in Eastern Europe, so Romania and Bulgaria?
Sure. The rules for sports marketing studies with medical devices are quite straight. If the medical device intended use is followed by the one from the CE marked, then we only need the ethics committee approval. And this is a quite straight process and quite easy to obtain.
Yeah, that sounds like a very pragmatic approach. Let's come to a little bit critical topic. A couple of months ago, I read in the newspaper that we have a corruption problem in Eastern Europe, especially in Bulgaria. It's a hot topic. What is with corruption in clinical research in these countries? Do you have a problem? Do you experience such a problem, or is it more a problem of different businesses?
Well, I think that first, corruption is the abuse of power in order to obtain personal gain. And corruption is everywhere in the world. I mean, what is different is the level of corruption, which is the amount of money that somebody is willing to go to jail for. So, if we particularly think about our business, we have to think that there is no particular interest of corruption inside, because first of all, the business is extremely well regulated. Secondly, it's very transparent. And thirdly, it's very profitable business, especially for this region. So what will be the grounds to feed the corruption? Because I don't see any. For instance, the approval process is very straight and very transparent, while also the business is very profitable for the sites themselves. Ghost patients will be easily revealed by a trained monitoring eye. Our CRAs and monitors in Bulgaria, they have a minimum 7 years of experience, and they will immediately see if there is a ghost patient or invented patient. Moreover, our local monitors, they are well trained on our own anti-corruption policy, on UK Bribery Act of 2010 and the FCP Act, which is the US law from 1977 on corruption. So I don't think that this is a particular reason. In Bulgaria, this is a hard topic, and the public prosecutor, they have a special division which is focused on corruption. The laws are very tough, and this public prosecutor are very well feared. So don't see any reasons for that.
I'm glad to hear that corruption is no big issue in your countries. Let's come to the end, and I like to ask my interview partners always, what would be your recommendation for sponsors who consider to conduct a clinical study in Bulgaria and Romania? And when would you also advise to go into another region?
So Romania and Bulgaria are perhaps one of the best destinations to run your studies safely within the European Union regulatory environment, with a high quality standard similar to the Western one, with increased improvement rates, and also having a cost solution in hand. It's very hard to think of reasons on why not to include Romania in your clinical studies.
Andrei, thank you very much. It was very interesting, and you know that I completely agree with you. I'm a big fan of Romania and Bulgaria. We have done a lot of studies there. I never made that experience.
Thank you, Andreas.
And I also hope that you motivated some sponsors to go into your countries. I hope you liked our video. Please, if you have any questions, send us the questions, comment our video, like it, and subscribe our channel. Bye bye.